Hi, and welcome back to A Glimpse of the Feminine. This is episode 2. My name's Tracy. I'm your host, and we're a couple days out from Christmas. I hope you all had a really good Christmas. First time in over 10 years that all my kids were home. So we just had a really nice day. All the grandkids and all the spouses didn't get to be there, but all the kids were home. And so it was nice to be able to get pictures and all that fun stuff. We're just about into the new year, and I got nothing to say about that. Oh, I hope that things look up in 2026. 2025 wasn't all bad, but there are definitely some things I'm glad to be leaving behind. So grab yourself a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. I've got tea with me because I'm recording in the afternoon, and I usually drink coffee in the morning and tea in the afternoon. So today's episode is What is the Church? This is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. What is the church? This has been prompted by me watching friends go through church trauma as well as my own experiences. The way I've seen leadership in many churches behaving, both locally and nationally, and the fact that they are misrepresenting the Lord that they claim to serve. Now, I grew up in the church, and I love the church. But I love Jesus more. And I am done quietly watching, wondering at what point do I become complicit in the neglect and abuse? It's time to call out bad behavior. It's time to say, do better. I don't think this will be covered in one episode, and so I'm planning on at least 2 or 3 episodes to cover various aspects of what the church is supposed to be and or do. I am by nature the kind of person who assumes the best in people. I give multiple chances to people to do what's right because I actually believe they will, until they've proven multiple times that they will not. I'm going to be sharing some of my own story and the things that have been hurtful to me and my family. Not as a woe is me, you should feel bad for me, but as examples of what I'm talking about. And in the telling, my intention is not to bring shame, but with the hope of encouraging positive change. There are lots and lots of similar and much worse stories out there. But this is my story and the one I have a right to tell. So a quick Google search gave this AI answer for what is the church. The church, in its truest sense, isn't a building, but the global community of people who believe in and follow Jesus Christ. Called the body of Christ, or the family of God, its purpose is to worship God, to teach biblical truths, make disciples, spread the gospel, care for those in need, and fellowship together, functioning as God's hands and voice in the world. The term can also refer to local gatherings of these believers or the physical buildings where they meet. So that's AI's response. I think this passage from Colossians 3:12-17 is a good guideline. Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another. And if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you. So you must also forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body. And be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Now, just as a really quick aside, many years ago, a friend gave a sermon on this passage. He was not a pastor at that point, but he is now. And I've just always, this is probably the one sermon throughout my life that stuck with me. Go figure. And that is, love is football pants. I'm not a big sports fan. I really only enjoy watching football if it's high school and my kids are playing. So there's that. And I don't know if any of you are football fans, but at that point in time, a couple of decades ago at least, football pants were a girdle. And the pads fit into pockets in the girdle. And then the guys put the girdles on and they were padded up. So his point was all these things, compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, those things are the pads. But love is the football pants that holds it all together. So I don't know. That helped me remember that. Hopefully it'll help you. Now, I also asked my friends on Facebook for their thoughts on what is the church and received Sunday school answers that were very similar to the AI response. And none of those are wrong. But I think what I was looking for was more experiential. Or what does the church mean to you? And not just for Christians. No matter what your religious beliefs, what does your group of worshipers mean to you? And going off the AI answer, the family of God, for me, this is what I think of. Having grown up in the church, I do think of it as a family. So what does it mean to be a family? Many of us came from dysfunctional or abusive families, or we may be living in situations like that now, or where domestic violence is a reality, which can make it difficult to see dysfunction within the church, and it sets us up for an unhealthy church at best, and spiritual or sexual or emotional abuse at worst. Some of us have been fortunate enough to grow up in fairly healthy families, but still, what does family mean? So when I think of family, I think of people who are supposed to love each other. John 13:34-35 says, "A new commandment I give you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. By this, people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Now, this is just one of many passages in the New Testament that speak of love and how believers are to love in general, but specifically their brothers and sisters in Christ. I also think of people who care for each other and do what they can to meet needs. In Acts 4, it says there was not a needy person among them, for as many were owners of lands or houses sold them, and brought the proceeds of what was sold and laid it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to each as any had need. But not just physical needs, emotional and spiritual needs as well. Families are people who need each other. 1 Corinthians 12:12-26 talks about the church as a body with many members. And starting in verse 18, it says, "But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, 'I have no need of you,' nor again the head to the feet, 'I have no need of you.' On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And those parts of the body that we think less honorable, we bestow the greater honor. And our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty, which our more presentable parts do not require. But God has so composed the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together." So, the people who have showed up for me haven't always been the church I attend. Years ago, I was on an email list. Anyone remember those? This particular list was for Christian wives, and those women were my church. Oh, I had a local body I attended, and I do not mean to say that they didn't do all the things that a church is supposed to do or should do. They loved on me, they cared for me, all those things. But in a non-traditional way, the women on this list were my church. We shared life. We shared our triumphs and our struggles. We prayed for each other. We supported each other, even though we were miles apart. A few of us were able to get together and meet at various times, and what a joy. We were truly already friends. And to actually get to meet face to face was such a blessing. But even for those that weren't able to do that, there were some lifelong friendships formed through that list. Hard things like loss of children, children born with congenital defects, deaths of spouses and parents and siblings, losses of jobs, those things were all made easier because we were loving on each other, supporting and praying for each other. And those burdens were made just a little bit lighter. And the joys, the jobs, the promotions, the births, the marriages, all those things were made even more joyous because we were doing them together. Sometimes it's not doing for someone or providing for them, but just checking in to see how they're doing and letting them know that you care. I can't even count the number of times that we were struggling as a couple or that I have been struggling personally and never heard a word from anyone. And they weren't secret struggles, but no one wanted to get involved enough to even show concern. And when that happens, we are left to flounder. More recently, I have found that when I have had a need, it hasn't been my local body that met the need or even asked if they could help. It's been others. Sometimes other believers, sometimes atheists, sometimes people I don't know their religious beliefs. Sometimes it's been friends, sometimes mere acquaintances, and sometimes anonymous strangers. Which has led me to wonder, who exactly is the church? Is the church what I've always believed? Or is the church those people who God moves to help? I've often been accused of not asking for help. But the reality is, I have asked for help many, many times over the years, or I've made needs known. I haven't always even been asking for somebody to do something for me or for my family, but sometimes just for a recommendation for someone I could hire to do a job and been met with silence or the equivalence of shrugged shoulders. Not necessarily even I don't know anyone that I could recommend. Recently, we had some fairly catastrophic damage to our home. Money's been tight for a very long time, and so I didn't have any insurance. Thankfully, I have people in my life who checked in on me and my kids and made sure we were okay and did what they could to help us. Not a call or a text from anyone in leadership in my church, and only one person. She commented on a Facebook post I made about the damage, and along about day 3, she did send a text that was how are you holding up? When I answered with fine, it was, oh, that's good. Just a little hint, if somebody says fine, they're probably not. I mentioned what had happened in church during our praise and prayer time. I gave thanks that no one was hurt, that we did maintain power, we were able to stay in the house. For the people that texted and called to see if we were okay and for the help we received. After church, not one elder or any other man asked me if we had everything taken care of or if there was anything the church could help with. I didn't even get man, I'm thankful you guys are all safe. The same person that commented on my Facebook post was the only one to even ask how I was doing. Honestly, I came home and cried. I most assuredly could use some help. But what I really, really needed was to know that someone gave a damn. Does anyone have any fucks left to give? Another friend, and I have her permission to share this, who is a member of our church and going through a very difficult time, also had similar damage to her home. Not a peep out of anyone from our church, though the elders claim to do everything they can to keep her and her kids safe. She has ongoing needs, and they know that, but choose to not even engage. I do want to mention, I'm not certain all the elders know the depths of the seriousness of her situation, but some of them do. I do want to add in here that a small amount of money was given to my family for Christmas, and my church does not owe me anything. I know that. They owe me nothing. And I am extremely thankful for the gift we were given. But I've been out of work for nearly 6 months. I've been looking and been applying, and I cannot get hired. And nobody has bothered to ask how we're doing. So honestly, the money feels a little bit like a token action so they can say they care. Here's the really amusing part. I was talking with a friend about the damage to the house. And we were talking about how I really have no means to get it taken care of. And I told him, hey, these are the times when my church does step in and help. Like smaller or ongoing needs, those tend to get lost in the shuffle or like they kind of don't exist. But when it's catastrophic like this, they always help. So here's the other thing family is messy. Families are messy. It's hard and it's complicated and it's just fucking messy to be involved in people's lives. It's inconvenient. It's costly. Sometimes financially, sometimes mentally, almost assuredly time-wise, and definitely emotionally. It takes a toll. But this is what we are called to be a body, to hurt when someone hurts, and rejoice when they rejoice. But that involves being involved, knowing what's going on in people's lives and doing what we can. Instead, hurting people are ignored or shunned. Well, not all. But those who have stepped outside the established comfort zone, have you set boundaries in relationships? Are you divorced? Have you said enough is enough when it comes to an abusive marriage? Have you spoken out against an idolized topic? You are now persona non grata. Not only are people being ignored, some are being intentionally driven out of the church. Not because they don't believe, but because loving them is uncomfortable. It takes too much effort. We have to step away from judgment and be kind and extend grace. We might have to be open to having hard conversations or, heaven forbid, rethinking what we believe. Instead of hurting with those who hurt, the hurting are ignored until they walk away. And then those left in the pews can pretend like they go to a healthy church, when in reality, it's rotting from within. 1 Corinthians speaks of the church as a body of many parts. Nowhere does it say we are to amputate the parts who are hurting or that make us uncomfortable. So as I was thinking about this, Alice in Wonderland comes to mind. Alice poses a problem to the Queen of Hearts. The Queen's solution? Off with her head! But Jesus? Jesus engages with people. He embraces the hurting. He is compassionate and loving. He draws people in rather than pushing them away. The only times we see him be anything close to harsh is when he is dealing with religious leaders who are not representing God accurately, or when they are putting undue expectations or pressure on those they shepherd. I don't believe that the majority of people in churches are bad actors. I think they are well-intentioned and do love their brothers and sisters sitting next to them. Folks are busy. Life is busy. We have work. We have our own families. Some of us have kids in sports or other extracurricular activities. We have places and causes where we invest our time and our money. I get it. it's hard to think about one more thing to add in. And most of us assume the church leadership is making sure needs are being met. But how much time does it take to ask someone after a service how their week went? Or if they're doing okay? How long does it take to send a text? Just thinking of you, how you doing? But are these touch points ever taught or talked about from the pulpit? Love one another is preached. But do they talk about it in practical terms or just in overarching pie-in-the-sky ideals? In the same way, forgive one another is preached. Yes, church leader, I know I'm supposed to, but how? So then, teaching and theology come into question. What exactly is being taught? We'll delve more into that in another episode. On the other hand, there are those who are bad actors, and I am not making any assumptions on who is or isn't, though their actions tend to give pretty good evidence. But they know exactly how they are ignoring people, how they are hurting people. They know where they have a lack of knowledge, such as being trauma-informed, understanding domestic violence, and that if domestic violence is happening, guess what? It's not a marriage issue. And they refuse to educate themselves on even a basic level. You have pastors, and I assume other faith leaders, who give counseling, either one-on-one or couples, who have absolutely no business counseling anyone, and by doing so, cause more damage than good. They know who they're gossiping about and where they're bearing false witness, and they continue to do it. I have watched lifelong friendships implode because of lies told by church leadership. I have watched as folks wonder what happened to so-and-so and why did they quit coming to church? But they don't want to gossip, so they never ask the person who left. Or they believe the pastor when he says he went and talked to them and they're just really hard-hearted. So, be praying for them. Full disclosure, I've been the person in the pews wondering what happened to so-and-so. And I didn't want to gossip and I didn't want to be nosy, so I didn't go and talk to them. And I regret that every time it happened. The church is supposed to be a community. Christians often refer to the church as a hospital for the broken and hurting, but instead, it's where the wounded are punished for hurting and left to suffer and die in silence. The church can and should be a safe place, a safe group of people where we can be vulnerable, where we can be who we truly are, where we can disagree with grace and kindness. A place where we can be honest about our brokenness and find love and acceptance. Encouragement to grow and make the changes we need to be a better person. A place where we learn what love truly is. One of the most heartbreaking things for me when I sit in church on Sunday morning and we have our praise and prayer time and we come to prayer requests is when somebody says, I have an unspoken request. Now, sometimes we say that because the things we want to ask for prayer for, they're not our things to share. And that's understandable. And God knows anyway, right? But sometimes, many times, we say that because what we need prayer for, we don't feel safe in saying. And why is that in God's house? Why do I not feel safe to say what I need prayer for? Because I will be judged. I may be belittled. I may be made to feel less than. Every person sitting in the pew is broken in one way or another. And people will say, oh, sin is sin. But the reality is, we rank sin. And some sin is worse than others. And if I know or believe that you are going to think that my sin is worse than what you've got going on, there's no way I'm going to share that with you. And just let me say, it should not be. It should not be. We'll say, oh, God hates the sin but loves the sinner. And as a Christian, that's, I hate the sin, but I love the sinner. Ask a sinner, do they feel that? And guess what? We're all sinners. Who am I to stand in judgment on someone else? Who am I to determine what's in anyone else's heart? The church is to be a family. We are a body, according to God's word. Now, here's the thing about bodies. They are interdependent. There is not a part of your body that isn't affected by another part of the body. And if I'm an eye, I don't get to look down on the knee because it can't see. Or if I'm a tongue, I don't get to look down on the rest of the body because it can't speak. If the toes have athlete's foot going on, I don't get to look down on that. I'm going to hurt with those toes because they're part of the body and their hurt affects me. I don't get to chop the toes off because them having athlete's foot is inconvenient or uncomfortable. I need to hurt with them. I need to do what I can to help them find healing. I need to go out and pick up some powder or some cream and apply it and soothe and comfort those toes because they're hurting. And you know what? The toes can't help themselves. They need the rest of the body to do that. I may get accused of gossiping for the things I've shared. But when we share our own story, that's not gossip. I've purposely left out names and places. If you know, you know. If you don't, that's fine, because these things are happening everywhere. It's not just me. It's not just my church. As I said in episode 1, these things are systemic. I want to see our churches be healthy. And it's possible. We just have to stand up and say, no more. When we see leadership or our fellow believers behaving in ways that hurt others. And I do think it's a case of somebody making the first move, of standing up and being an example, of reaching out and caring. I have a fuck to give. Do you? And that's episode 2. I'm planning on a couple more episodes at least in this series. I'd like to look at some of what the church teaches. And I found the phrase in the AI explanation, God's hands and voice in the world, to be intriguing. And I would really like to look more into that. There may be some other things between then and now that I want to flesh out some more. So we'll see how many episodes it ends up being. I hope today was thought-provoking and that you heard something that resonated with you. Don't forget to like and share if you enjoyed the podcast. And until next time,